Welcome everyone to the season finale of your kitchen cabinet, our kitchen cabinet conversations. We have two remarkable, formidable, inspiring, amazing women with us today who both happen to be from Missouri. We have our St. Louis Treasurer, Tishaura Jones, and the Democratic nominee candidate for the congressional seat in the 1st District, very likely to, of course, be to win, as it is a very heavily favored Democratic district, Cori Bush. And if you haven't heard of these two women, you are living under a rock. And so you need to Google them and their amazingness. We have about 30 minutes with them today, so I'm going to dive right in. I'm Erin Velarde. I'm the founder of Vote Run Lead, and I've had the privilege of knowing Tishaura Jones now for several years. She's a part of our community. She has contributed as a certified trainer, training women around the country. And she's also influenced so many other alumni and women in our network. We had State Representative Leslie Harrod on last week, who talked about modeling one of Tishaura's programs around college savings. And Tishaura, this was your re-election for St. Louis Treasurer. And I think, unfortunately, in your campaign for mayor, in your first election, we saw a lot being thrown at you. But your response, your humor, your grace, your accountability is really a masterclass in how to respond. And I want you to talk a little bit about that and talk about some of the resilience that you're able to maintain through your multiple campaigns.
Yes, so thanks, Erin, for having me. It's so great to see you, and of course, my sister Cori. When I ran for mayor in 2017, there were 7 candidates on the ballot, and our local newspaper, the Post Dispatch, which I call the Post Disgrace, only ran negative articles about me and no one else, from their editorials to their front page stories. And when the time came to interview with the editorial board for endorsement, as many politicians do, I decided not to participate in a self-fulfilling prophecy. And I declined their invitation and instead wrote them a letter and told them how I felt about their process and their paper. Because our editorial board then and now still does not have any African Americans and no women. I believe the editorial board is probably only one person, Todd Roberts. And since then, they still don't have any people of color or African Americans. And how can you be an editorial board that represents a very diverse area and not have any people of color or women on your editorial board? It wasn't always that way. There have been Black journalists and women on the editorial board in the past, but they have chosen not to replace them. And so this campaign cycle, they did it again. And obviously they didn't learn the last time. So I penned another op-ed to talk about the 23 at the time, I think it's now 27 bad editorials that they've written about me in the last 4 years. And I'm just not going to be a part of their, a part of it. I'm just not going to participate.
Right.
And I want to speak to your listeners or your viewers, it's okay to fight back.
Right.
It's okay to fight back. It's okay to put the truth out there. And it's okay to try to control the narrative. Don't let the local paper control the narrative. You have a voice and use it.
And Cori, I think you had a lot of opportunities in the press. You were one of the stars of Knock Down the House. You have also contributed to our community beautifully. You've written op-eds. You've come back to speak. Thank you so much. How did you translate, though, that energy into this second campaign? Because well, right, the buzz doesn't necessarily mean a win. But this second time, right, what do you think was really different about your candidacy, about your team, that made you successful?
So, we stuck together and we had to remember, you keep your narrative, like Tishaura was talking about, you can't lean on, your local papers or, you can't, there are a lot of places where we're told to lean that we have to learn how to work around. And so we just we stayed in the community. I took a few months off, but then I was right back in the community just doing the work that I normally do. And people saw that. And, when COVID-19 hit, just me being a nurse, people were like, oh, now we see nurses are heroes. And so, that helped out a lot because I'm just, even while I was running for a portion of those first several months, I was still working full time as a nurse. And then I went through my own COVID-19 situation and I was very public about it. I was vulnerable because I wanted to help other people, as they were going through that themselves. And I kept running in the midst of that. And then when George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, after all of those murders, I, took to the streets like I usually do and continued, to protest, even though people were saying, you're a congressional candidate, you shouldn't be in the street, you blah, 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 but I'm going to be Cori. And so I think just staying your authentic self, which was, I remember part of the message, when Tishaura and I, when you had the event here in St. Louis last year, that was part of the message, it's like run as you are. And that's who we are, and just even thinking about what Tishaura was saying, like those editorial boards, slam me too, so slamming her, slamming me, slamming, another Black woman that's in office right now, and all we're trying to do is work for our communities. It's not about us. It's not about fame. It's not about a name. It's just about making sure that we fix the problems in our communities that we didn't even create.
Yeah, I hear that. And I think that, that's one of the things you guys did, a beautiful press release of really controlling the narrative, a press event with Kimberly around, Black Girl Magic happening in Missouri. We've done work in Missouri. It is an interesting place. I will leave it there. It's a little bit of the South, it's a little bit of the North. It's, where did you go to high school? It's a lot. Right? We've a lot of learning stepping into Missouri these past couple of years. But what has changed? Nationally, we're seeing this. We are talking and seeing Black women move their electoral power from the voting booth into candidacies that I think in 2020 are overwhelmingly going to be successful. And so what's happening in Missouri and what's happening nationally that is either changing voters' hearts and minds, or that there's more of us running? What do you think it is that's different about this year and about the politic that you both are a part of? Tishaura, you want to go first?
Yeah, so the Barberly Family Foundation did some research with Higher Heights about Black female candidates several years ago, and they found that Black women tend to transcend race when they run for public office. And I have found that to be true, not only through my successful campaigns as state representative and treasurer, but also when we looked at the polling data, the exit polling from the mayoral race. I had a multi-generational, very diverse coalition of people that came together to get me within 888 votes of being mayor. And I think Cori sees the same. When you look at the places where she performed the strongest, were not always the places where a majority of Black people live. They were places where you had mixed income and mixed race communities. So I think that America is ready, and the Democratic Party, which we are Democrats, has realized that Black women are the backbone and the front bone, as my sister Carol McDonald says, of this party, and it's our turn to lead.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, I think that seeing other people, for me, oftentimes things have changed in my life because I saw someone else and I realized, I can do that, or that door is open. Not always, but sometimes that was the thing. When Knock Down the House hit Netflix, we started I received thousands of messages from all over the world, from women in areas where I literally had to Google to find out, like, where is this place on a map? Like, I didn't even know where these places were in the world, some of them. But women were inspired to run for office. And then so many Black women and young girls reached out to me just saying, how did you do it and how can I do it? And they talked about, you ran with your hair like that with braids, and you ran, and you talked about these things, and, and so being ourselves and talking about it, making sure that people know, it's okay to be you, because sometimes we think that you have to transform into this other person in order to fit, to be able to run for office, but I'm trying to show people that, no, I'm from St. Louis, and there's a particular flavor that comes with being from this place. There's a, just like from any other place. And so I'm bringing that and all of those experiences to the front, because we have to represent our areas. So it's okay to be from that area. I shouldn't shake that off and try to clean that off and work out those rough edges. We need some of those rough edges to fight in Congress. And so I'm taking that with me. And so I think that Black women, we are seeing that, look, we can't wait on other people to do it for us. We've been the ones pushing. We've been the ones helping helping and the ones nurturing for so long. I'm popping the breast out of somebody else's mouth, and I'm going and I'm taking this all the way to, whether it's to the state house, to the mayoral seat, to Congress, even to the vice presidency.
Yes, yes. Or that's, I think you heard last night for the first time, one, when Kamala Harris, United States Senator Kamala Harris, accepted the VP nomination, like, I was clapping in my house. I was mad that there was not a big audience for her to really get that. But, she started out with family. You're both moms. You're both single moms. She also talked about structural racism, right? She said words that we have not heard a vice president say in a national address, I think, ever before. And that, that I don't think was lost on any of us. So I'm going to two parts to this, sort of your reactions to last night, and that tone of family, because I have seen both of you, do a beautiful job of, integrating your family into this political life. And so many women are really worried about how to do that, all of those responsibilities. I'd love you to share a little bit of wisdom around your own navigation. And I'd love to hear a little bit of your reaction to last night.
Yeah, so one of our local journalists sent me a text to ask me, what was I expecting from Kamala's speech? This was before it happened. And I said, well, Senator Harris and I share a lot of the same identities, not only as Black women, but we're also HBCU grads. She went to Howard, I went to Hampton, rival schools. She's an AKA, I'm a Delta, rival sororities. But still, those are some of the experiences that tie us together. And that's the pride that I have and have had, watching her as a presidential candidate. I wanted her to win for those reasons alone, right? And it's, there's a certain, I just feel seen, as a Black woman trying to do the best for my community, to serve this country, to serve this city. You just feel seen as a Black woman, and you feel like the country finally recognizes our work. And so that's really, it sums up how I saw last night. Cori.
And did you watch it with your son?
He didn't want to watch it.
That's a little
bit. Senator Harris is about to speak. You should be watching this. He's like, I'm gonna go upstairs and play.
Cori, what about you? What were some of your reactions and your feelings?
Yeah, so as a single mom, I've been a single mom for most of my children's lives, so they don't even know me being, they don't know a two-parent household, but we figured out a way to just, survive. It was always survival. And just because of the situations that I always found myself in, or just fighting fights that I don't believe I should have had to fight, had we had, better representation and better legislation, and better leadership in our community, and not putting it all on that. But there were so many barriers to what I was trying to do in life. And so, but my children have always been my cheerleaders, like always, but I keep them, I'll bring them around for certain things, but oftentimes I keep them, away simply because of the, there are security issues that we have to watch out for, whether it's Tishaura, me, Kim, and so many others. There are security issues. So I don't like my children in the spotlight much, because I don't want them to be in harm's way as
Right.
we are. But as far as last night, watching, I was just kind of all over the place with it, because, listening to Senator Harris talk about, police brutality and, and racism, and then talking about, her own family. And, it was just, I was just trying to put it all together in a way of, that this is not just a speech. That's what it has to be for me. It has to be, because we've heard some really great and eloquent speeches, and, we get all, we're so excited. So for me, it was like, I love this. Let's do this. It was just like, it was taking in, but let's do it, and so I can't wait to see what she does with it, and then how she pushes other people, in politics to actually make those things happen.
Right.
And I just applaud her for being where she is.
Right. Thank you. Thank you. So we're about halfway through. So I want to offer up to our folks who are watching, if you have any questions, you can share them now. But one of the questions I want to ask for both of you is, Cori, I was like reading Twitter, refreshing, people had called it for your opponent, then they called it back for you. I was all over the place, not reacting because my baby was sleeping in the same room as me. I was like, oh my God, it was quite a night. Tishaura's returns came in with a big margin. Kimberly Gardner's returns. It was, it really was magical. I was crying. People on Twitter are like, I'm crying. And I want you to share a little bit of like the victory, because it is hard work. So share with us a little bit of the victory and share with us what it is you're most excited to do when you get to Congress or in your term as treasurer. And Cori, we'll start with you.
Cori, start with the call that I gave you 2 weeks before.
Oh,
remember
my goodness. Yeah. That started like the countdown. So yeah, 2 weeks before the primary, Tishaura, called. So we had this moment where it was just like, what happens if all three of us win on primary night? If Kim wins, if Tishaura wins, she was speaking, and then if I win, and it was just like, oh my gosh, it's just going to like touch the world. Like this is just going to be great. Like if all three of us end up there at the same time. And then we started this countdown where it was like, 8 days left. 6 days left, 2 days, and that's really all we could say was just like, oh, I can't wait to get there, because we were going through so much. The attacks were unbelievable, but we kept going, encouraging each other, and but that night, everything was great. Like that day, I was just going from place to place, talking to people, playing with kids. And, it was just amazing I just felt like I knew that I had won. But then so I made it back to the campaign office, the press was here, poll workers were coming back, and, the music was playing, the DJ was outside. So I started dancing. I wasn't even getting dressed yet. I was just dancing and, just having a good time. And my team was like, you need to go back to your office. And I'm like, what's on? And I went back into my office and they're like, sit down. I'm like, what? They said they called the race for Clay. I'm like, what? It's 1% reporting. And they're like, yeah, we're sorry to call the race. And I'm like, no, this can't be. But I just like went into this place of 2018 and I'm like, I can't believe this. Look, so my sister walks in the door and she sat down, and I think she knew what she had to do. Her mission, I think, she knew what her mission was. She sat down talking about nails and shoes and everything else. I'm trying to watch a movie, so I get my mind off of it. And then all of a sudden, I found out that we had won. But the victory was the victory was protesters chanting. That was the victory. My protester family was here and they were chanting it up, at our victory party. It was amazing.
It was crazy. It was in bad political reporting. It was 1%. It's a little bit of a glimpse, I think, of what's going to happen on the national election, right? Like let's just wait. Everybody pump the brakes. Things are changing. Just give these votes, So I think that is a sweet story, and thank God for sisters who are able to do that, right? And like just take your mind off, give it a couple hours before we really know. So what are you most excited to get to work on when you get to Congress?
Well, one thing I'm excited about is just being able to bring St. Louis forward, like give St. Louis let people see something different, not number one in homicides, not high in crime, high in poverty, like all of that, like showing something different, but also starting off with COVID-19 relief. I'm really excited about like real relief, that $2,000, I keep talking about it, $2,000 a month, UBI, and, making it retroactive. What happens when our people get this so many people are telling me that they lost their, their $600, that they were getting with their unemployment, how much it hurt them, and just, anyway, we just need help. So starting with that, and then being able to help our students, right now, they're having trouble, with online learning, and just being able to be there for them.
And the resources.
Doing it from that perspective of somebody who's been there.
Yeah, I love it. Tishaura, what about you? Victorious, and what are you most excited about, either continuing or starting new?
I'm just excited about continuing the programs that we currently have in the office and making them better. When I found out that Cori won, I was actually doing an interview with another news outlet, and someone slipped me a napkin and with the words Cori won next to me. And I said, and I literally almost fell out my chair. And I cut off the interview. I said, you know what? I got to call you back. I have nothing left for you right now. Nothing. Because and let me back up for a minute. You know, and it's not because you know, it's that I think that, you know, Congressman Clay was a horrible congressman. Couldn't be further from the truth. He voted the right way. He was a progressive congressman. His father trained my father. And there's a long family legacy there. But sometimes it's time for something new.
Right.
And Cori can tell you, she took a few months off and she just kept working. And if there's nothing that your viewers learn from today, is that if that's your dream, you stay working at it. That delay is not denial. If it's worth having, it's worth working hard for. And you saw Cori everywhere. And so much so that eventually it put her in the hospital. So I'm excited to work with her to bring resources back to our community, to really tackle the root causes of crime, poverty, substance abuse, mental health abuse, and to make sure that we don't hear that St. Louis is on the top list of the list of everything bad and on the bottom of the list of everything good.
Right. It's that simple. It's really that simple, right? And even changing the narrative around that for your community, that is possible, you know, is the start of that. And I think that is also something that both of you are bringing to your leadership. You know, is we've been talking a lot this summer about reimagining democracy. We just spent 6 weeks looking at all of the different influences that have built our democracy, the mistakes we've made along the way, the things that got left out of our history books. And, you know, in a hope that we can, when you know better, you do better. And so we've been asking all of our speakers, what does a reimagined democracy look like for you? And now, and what do you think how is your leadership contributing to that vision?
I think a reimagined democracy is one where you listen more than you speak. You listen to your constituents more than you speak, and don't always assume that you have the right answer. I get a lot of ideas on how to run my department from my constituents and have implemented their suggestions. And I'm not afraid to say when I don't know everything. I don't know is not a bad answer, and no is a complete sentence, right? And I think that people have not been asked to participate in their democracy for the longest time. And I look forward to having a more participatory democracy to make sure that people's voices are heard, because that's all these protests have been about recently. They want to be heard. They want to be understood. They want to be cared for. And I just look forward to being a part of that process and being blessed to be able to do this work.
Thank you. Cori?
So I'll just add to that. I don't, it's not much left to say. But for me, parity, having parity in areas, because, how many women, we need more women in Congress, the House and the Senate. We need, and just all over in our government. So I think that's one. Also, to not have to fight for our human rights. We have to keep fighting for things that we should just have. So to not be in a place where when we talk about reimagining our democracy, to have that be a real thing, so those things are off the table. No more fighting for those things, because we have those things as a society. And also campaign finance reform that then allows for our politicians, our elected officials, to then not be seen as this corrupt group of people that's hurting our democracy, because they won't be there anymore. And then so then we can have people that decide that they want to be a part, like Tishaura was talking about. People want to be a part of the process because they feel that it's clean. They feel that there is integrity there, and it's just about the work to build.
Yeah. it's so interesting. We didn't, I mean, we're always talking about money, right? Because it's like people, when a lot of women, whether they're young millennial women, whether they even, have strong careers and, decent finances, it's like, how do you do that? How do you raise, big money, right? And it seems so, we had so many women when the coronavirus first struck who were campaigning, who were like, now isn't the time to ask for money. And so we had to do that sort of mental mind shift, right? That you are actually the leaders we need. And right now, this is the system we have. And so you need to go ask for, $250 from the people that can afford it. Maybe not $5 right now from those people, right? Take a break from them. But the idea, I think you're one of the first people to really call out, Cori, that the campaign finance, right? It was sort of a hot issue for a minute. And it's like we've just decided that it's the way it is. But I think that is such a critical, we would see more people of color. We would see more lower income folks. We would see a lot more women and a lot more young people run for office if we did have that. So thank you for that reminder. All right. So I know we have
pay politicians what they're worth. I think we also need to pay politicians what they're worth, because in so many states and so many localities, a lot of your city councils are either unpaid or, or they haven't received a raise. And I think we would get better quality candidates if those positions paid a living wage. The only time I got the earned income tax credit was when I was in the state legislature as a single mom, which meant that I was making poverty wages trying to serve my state, which is ridiculous. But it also sets up, an oligarchical society where only those who can afford to serve are the people who are serving. And we have to get away from that. We don't take a vow of poverty just to serve our country.
Right. Thank you. That's so true. And the state legislatures where it's the lowest pay, you actually find more women because the men are like, oh, it's not worth it, right? So we're gonna change that. We're doing an interesting state leg campaign. I'm gonna share with both of you offline. But as we close out, for the women who are watching, for the women who will watch later, because I know a lot of young ladies have this tagged, so many of the ideas, I think that even a few years ago, so many of the, representatives a few years ago that we thought was not possible to be elected are being elected. Ideas are becoming, normal. And so what advice do you have for, some of the women who are thinking about running that feel like, they are too radical or they are, like they're not fitting the political norms? What advice do you have for them as they sort of step into civic life and potentially run for office?
I think in recent years, we've seen a lot of those norms thrown out of the window with the election of Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar as the first Muslim representatives in Congress. We've seen trans women and trans men elected to local city councils, like in Minneapolis and in the Virginia House. I think, be you and be authentic. And if they can't accept that, eventually they will, because, you don't need to change in order to serve. They need to accept you and they need to change their hearts in order to accept you as your authentic self.
Yeah. And I'll say, know your mission. Don't try to be someone else. So, don't try to be a radical person with radical thinking if that's not really who you are. And don't try to not be if that's who you are. Like, understand what your mission is and then push forward in that. I'm all about minding my own mission. We're always talking about such should have done this, they should do it like this, they should do, mind your own mission and I'll mind my own. People ask me all the time, like, well, why do you do what you, and I'm like, I just love people. I just love humanity and I want to see humanity great, and so that's why I do the work that I do. I want to save lives. And because of that, I have to be radical in that because I've seen what happens when people die. Like, death is final, so I can't participate in allowing people to just die. So that's why I'm the way that I am. But other people need to know, why are you the way you are? And then push that forward. If it comes off radical, oh, well, get the job done. But make sure people know, like Tishaura said, you be your authentic self, but make sure you're open too, so that we have to be able to follow to be able to lead. So make sure you're listening and you're taking in and that the people know that they can trust you.
Well, thank you both. There's nothing better to end on that. And as I said in the beginning, amazing, inspiring, formidable. I just love both of you. I'm so grateful for your leadership and for your contributions to the Vote Run Lead community, to saying yes to today. I know how busy you both are. Follow both of these women on Twitter, and their social media feeds are beautiful. And I look forward to seeing the swearing in for you, Cori, and all that you will do and where you will go, future Mayor Tishaura Jones. All right. Thank you, ladies. So much. We love you.
Love you too, Erin.
Love you too. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Tune back in on September 12th. Save the date. It'll be a big GOTV boot camp. It's a Saturday. Time's forthcoming, but everything you'll need to know to turn out the vote for your campaign or your community. Yes, it'll be a couple hours. It'll be a little brutal on Zoom, but we have some of the best trainers for you on how to get out the vote and win your campaigns and turn out your community. Thank you